Hey everybody, it's me. I'm back, and how was that nature walk? If you joined me for it, thanks for coming along. It was a little different. Uh, let's see here. Can we get this? There we go. That's better. So yeah, I hope that you guys enjoyed that. That was as per requested by some longtime subscribers, and that's Seattle. That's an urban park that's urban mushroom hunting, I suppose, at its finest, at its mediocrity. But Sunny, Doan, good to see you here. You got to head off at 6:20, no problem. I know I live streamed yesterday. I live streamed the day before that, I think. I've been doing a lot of live streams. I just keep them busy, you know. You guys keep me happy, healthy, wealthy, and wise. So, I just figured let's hop on here and chit chat with my buddies. It's interesting. I'm curious if nobody got the alert about it too yet, because there's 4 people here or 3. And usually we got like 20 to 40 people hanging out. So in any case, today what I was thinking we'd talk about, Sir Halo 2, hello, and I hope you're doing well. Today I figured for the this portion of it, one, I want to warn you, don't know what's been going on with the internet, but of course, at an hour and a half and then at 40 minutes, a couple live streams got dropped the last few times. It may happen again. If I can't get right back on, then I'm not gonna like try to fix it for more than about 5 or 10 minutes. And even that, lately it's a sign. Like if I can't fix the problem within a few seconds, it's gonna be a challenge. Abigail, Ria, that's well, thank you. 2 streams in a row. So if you guys were just with me earlier in the woods, thanks for joining. As I turned off the camera, I had a group of guys that thought I was taking pictures of them. They were, there's not a really family-friendly way of putting shooting up, but that's why they call Seattle the Big H, because that's how you spell it. But yeah, they were not happy, and so they were kind of just like, hey man, what are you filming? I was like, oh, I'm just showing people mushrooms, and they were like, you mean you're showing everyone like our house? And I was like, well, this is a public park, but I'm gonna keep walking. So in any case, it was good timing that the stream ended there and I could put my phone in my pocket. Jerry, good to see you. Zen Ginger, hey, how are you doing? How is everybody? If you have questions about your aquarium, especially if you asked them earlier and I probably just wasn't watching chat because I was hiking through the woods off a trail, like not on a trail, but literally off the trail, then feel free to ask away. But I was thinking maybe what we would, and hello Simon, and also Jerry and Sunny, hello. I was thinking I would discuss a little bit about setting up a new tank. And this isn't going to be a talk for like if you've never set up a tank. This is going to be a little bit of a talk focused on the idea of if you already have a tank or 2 or 3 or 40. Some of the ways that I think of setting up a tank that can save some money and also some headaches. And so I figured I'd just kind of go over that. And then if people have questions about anything I'm saying or about anything fish related, that's what these live streams are for. They're really so that you guys can get a hold of me, so that I can use you guys as a community sounding board as well. And so that we can all kind of hopefully crowdsource the answer to whatever's going on, whatever cat has our tongue, so to speak, in the hobby. So, turning this around, this tank is just so full of plants. I mean, I almost feel bad for the fish sometimes because there's so many plants in here. So many just densely packed plants that I could easily break into parts. I've got a lot of moss growing in here. I've got a lot of the Miyaka has really gone nuts. And so is some of the Bacopa. Also, Okay, I didn't lose you guys. Oh boy. I thought I was going to. I thought I'd lost you. Um, so this stream, it may get interrupted. If it goes down, I so very much apologize. But it looks like a lot of people are getting sick of my streams today because we've got very limited people. That or the YouTube search algorithm is like, you are cut off, sir. 3 live streams in 24 hours? No. No. Bad. So basically, I was saying this tank is so planted with plants, duh. And I can take cuttings from this. Stem plants are a magical thing for that reason. You can see the moss has volunteered itself up onto the filter intake, which is fine. I only need the bottom of the filter intake, really. And even back in the Anubias, this big stone back here, you can't see the stone anymore. And I've just been assembling this mass of massive grass. And you can see the little mala shrimp are doing well in here. The gourami's not eating them, which surprises me. We got the baby guppies chilling. They're all playing around and having fun, splashing and giggling as guppies do. You know how they laugh audibly. So basically, when I think of setting up a new tank, I always like to assess what do I have. So here, I've got some of this stuff that was called orangutan fur. It's a moss that grows in these long, spindly lines, and it kind of looks like if an orangutan had his arm stretched out, what it would be, what that shaggy mane look would be. And so that's something I'm thinking about using. However, I am facing a problem in here, which is that if I start a new tank, like a tank that hasn't been cycled that I'm just repurposing, and I really do want to set up a new aquascape for the sake of vanity, for the sake of looking at something nice, rather than this has kind of become such a utilitarian tank in its purposes. But there's so many plants in here that I can easily draw from and break up and place. And that's true with a lot of my tanks. I can definitely, trim any of the stems. That's what's wonderful about stem plants. But I also just put root tabs in here. So there should be some more color, more vitality and density coming to this tank soon. But like this, like the Hygrophila polysperma sunset, that's another beautiful one. So when I'm thinking about planning another tank to start and to put new colors and textures together, oftentimes the best thing to do is to grab a piece of graphing paper and plot it out that way by sections, which is the Dutch method, as it's known, where you keep things together according to color. Also, check this out. This is a Bucephalandra that is currently, it's been under the light long enough, it's going to be flowering, and that should be really pretty. So we're going to leave it floating here and able to get lots of light for us so that we can see it flower. So I really suggest graphing paper when you do that. We can talk about that a little bit. I already have a series on Iwagumi and the golden ratio, the rule of thirds, things like that, I'm hoping would help you guys if you feel like, oh, I don't have any creative bone in my body. Well, you don't need to. You can be an engineer and have that mathematical mind that's not abstract creativity, or you think it's not. But everyone does have it in some capacity. And so there's some general rules you can follow. So if you're curious, go back, search through my videos to find those things, and you'll find some of the general aesthetic rules that we in Western society, as well as just global societies, there are certain things that look good to the human eye, like odd numbers of things. All right, so it looks like we have a couple questions coming in here. Abigail says, I have a 10-gallon I'll be setting up in a few days, and I have a 3-gallon shrimp tank cycling right now. 10-gallon will probably be for the shrimp too. Nice. Let's see here. Question by Simon Church, or Crutch, sorry. When was that a Freudian slip? I hope not. Okay. When away from home, we say, for example, fish can go 1 or 2 weeks without with no food. But don't say how long does your black beard. Oh, does your BB, your black beard, survive without food provided? Is it possible to? Oh, beneficial bacteria. Okay, sorry. I was thinking black beard algae. How long does your black or your beneficial bacteria go um, without being crashed? So if it's a planted tank, you really don't need to worry about that, honestly. Even just this leaf here will produce some food. Now, what happens is you may have a die down of some of your bacteria in your filter floss, on some of your surfaces, in your porous materials and things, but it will rebound within a matter of days. I mean, I'm talking a week to 2 days. And in that amount of time, basically, you're not going to be producing a ton of ammonia unless you have like puffer fish and you just really overfeed them, or a shrimp tank and you really overfeed it, has no plants. So your beneficial bacteria, your fish still have to drink water and get, hydrated and all that. I have a video on do fish drink, do fish pee. And yes, they do. And just like all animals, when they pee, they have creatine and urea as well as ammonia in their urine. And that is enough on its own to which they're getting out of the nitrogen and sodium and chlorine and some of the just base elements that are going to be in the water of a good ecosystem of a cycled tank, and in the micro nutrients that are swimming around. Remember, even in a tank with no plants, if you take a water sample under a microscope, there's all sorts of little things swimming around in it. And a lot of them your fish eat, if not on purpose. Lots of these little nanofish will actually eat things we can't even see. You may wonder, what are they nibbling at? But if your tank has light, you're going to have photosynthetic life forms growing. You're going to have algae, things like that, and it's going to produce food for your fish, even if it's not their first choice. While you're gone for a week or two, 2 is kind of pushing it, depending on the species. Other species can go, 2 months or a month without needing to be fed. Guppies, in general, if you don't have them, if I had 20 in here with all these plants, I could just leave them almost indefinitely, and they'd probably eat some of their fry once in a while, but they'd eat biofilm, they'd eat algae, and they would probably survive indefinitely, honestly. And people don't give a fully dirted tank, especially if you have a deep sand substrate or a deep dense substrate, people don't give it credit for the amount of vitality and life that really is produced there. Yeah, hey Muppet, how's it going? Drew Sample, how's it going? I don't think anybody got an alert, nor do I know if anybody's getting like an alert that I'm up right now necessarily, because we had like 10 people in 10 minutes or something show up, which usually, you guys, we got like 60 people in here by this point. So, yeah, I think they're just like, sir, you're cut off. You have had enough live streaming today. But I was going to say, this tank, if I am introducing a new life form, I don't know if any of you guys are up for it, but if you want to share out that this live stream's going, or if you want to send it to anybody, I don't know if that'll wake YouTube up to the fact that this is happening, but I know how that goes. You don't want to be that friend who's always sharing stuff and just people don't listen to it anyways, so no pressure. But if someone wants to try that, maybe it'll help. It looks like now we're starting to get some more people trickling in. We're getting to like 30 people, so I appreciate that. I appreciate those of you who found your way to me in any case. But yeah, so hey Derek, how's it going? Yeah, YouTube has been doing dirty to a lot of fish tubers lately. They must have changed something, because nobody's alerts, even with the bells on, are working to the extent that it seems as though most viewers wish that it would, myself included. I'm not getting updates from channels that I specifically go to and watch, and I've clicked the bell and everything. So yeah. How's it going? I need a blunt. You missed our magic mushroom hunting trip this afternoon. You may have liked that. I mean, I don't mean to judge, but your screen name implies that that may be the case. Also, an interesting little point here. I put 20 cherry shrimp in here a couple, maybe a month ago, and it looks like they're still doing okay. For a while, I didn't see I didn't see a sign one of any of them, and now they're kind of creeping back out. So I think they kind of hit the deck, and then they decided, okay, no one's eating us. We'll be all right. We be all right. So what do we want to do if we want a new tank? We'll talk about substrate and everything first, but before we even get to there, what do I do when I think, okay, I'm going to want a new tank. I don't want to spend a lot of money, but I do want to aquascape it. Whoa, did you guys see that Corey hit the top? He's so rambunctious. What a cutie. I always look at my plants and I think, okay, am I 2 weeks out? Am I 3 weeks out? Am I a week out? A couple days? And what I'll do is I will take a plant. For instance, this one. It's nice and robust. I'm going to pinch it. You could use scissors. That's probably a wiser decision. But this beautiful plant here, now what I'm going to do, you see I've got this nice plant. Every spot on a stem plant where you've got the nodes of where new leaves form, you can just float this in the water. It'll give the guppies a fry, some places to hide, and the shrimp stuff to eat. But they're going to just, that'll chill. And for the next, I don't know, week or so, 4 days, it will start putting out running shoots, tap roots, to try to figure out, can I get some food out of this? Is there anything nearby that I can tap into substrate wise? Like right here, this is a little piece I broke off a while back. You can see the original roots have started running, but also we've got these little stringies. And when you get these ones coming from it, right here, this is the same plant actually. It's just a very low light, malnourished version of it. What you can do then, you float them. And if you have a sump, you can easily float it in there if you've got a light. And I like to dose the water column, and that kind of entices them to still think there's enough nutrients to be worth the search, if that makes any sense. But then what will happen is when this has all those points at every little or every other little section, poor female guppy, she is getting just hassled by all the little males. What it's going to do is under the light, that's going to then, I'll be able to take this piece, rip off half the leaves or all the leaves. Usually the way I've noticed is getting rid of half the leaves or all the leaves on one side is good. And then what I'll do is I'll bury a trench in the next tank that it'll go in, and I'll lay it sideways. That will give me 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, somewhere between 3 and maybe even 8 new sprouts of this, which will grow upward. As long as I allow the last bit to kind of be folded up like this to get a little bit of photosynthetic light, sometimes you can get away with it with just roots. But if you want to ensure it, vitality, you want to leave that. So what you want to do is pick out all the plants that you may be wanting to do that with that are stem plants. Rhizome plants, you don't need to worry. You could start splitting them if you'd like. And that's my first stage. My second stage would be collecting hardscape. That's going to be my second stage, and making sure obviously you have an aquarium, a filter, all that kind of stuff, and deciding on what filtration, what aquarium, what kind of setup you want to be working with. Because like I'm going to be doing, I will be setting up an established tank. I'm not going to be going from scratch. And so that has mixed blessings and curses. One, my substrate is going to be probably taxed, maxed, and needs to be batched and thrown away. So I'll have to be getting rid of at least some amount of the substrate. if it's a one of these little pelletized granulized soils, they'll break down into a dusty layer, and that's when they're beyond done. But when they're at this point, it's still kind of iffy if you're going to be able to get some love out of it for the plants. Now, you could either use root tabs, or something like that, and be dosing the water column, and that's a perfectly viable way. Now, the other thing I wanted to point out while we're live here is, do you guys remember how I had all that cyanobacteria, the green growth on here? There's still a little bit here. Well, I told you that I was going to be putting maca roots into the soil, and just like I said, that stuff, it needs light, so it's just growing around the edges of the substrate, but it's also anaerobic, and all plant roots bring oxygen with them. They bring water with them and oxygen. They're hydrophilic. Yes, not phobic, hydrophilic. So they pull in water molecularly, like a magnet, and then they also create this thin layer around themselves to protect themselves. And it's kind of funky because we were just going on the walk talking about fungi, but all these plants in here also have fungi that live on their roots. Sometimes you'll see it. Sometimes you'll see a stringy lattice that's not just tap roots that runs through a substrate. Generally, you need a capped substrate and an anaerobic environment. And it will use the plant's oxygen, and it will have its spores, and it's called hyphae, its network of roots. And then the stringy stuff is the mycelium. But hyphae is anything that can reproduce, essentially, and it's where the fruiting body comes off of later if it were to turn into mushrooms. So it is something that will be in your soil. If you take the plants out, you've still inoculated your soil. And also, this can cause mildew, this can cause rot. I mean, there's lots of fungi in the world. Look at this silly orange Venezuela's Corridora, just gargling air at the top. I don't know. Lately, they've been having a lot of fun sitting on all the leaves here and on the Anubias. I don't know why. That's not a normal behavior for them, for my tank, for that species. But they've just been resting on all the little leaf surfaces. And there's no CO2, so I really don't get it. Hey, Alex, say my name. My buddy doesn't believe you're live. 40 years fish? Buddy, you're wrong. Your buddy is right. Let's see here. Derek Smith, I just tore down a 90-gallon planted tank and moved the plants to 2 separate 40 breeders. I used a little bit of the old substrate, and I use half of the aquarium water. Should I expect a lot of melting back? No, definitely not. If you already had plants that were submerged, as long as you didn't let them out of water for too long, they're going to be just fine. They'll go right back in and be settled. Now, sometimes what happens is they'll reject their roots and they will die. And I'll try to find an example. Here's a good example of that right here. And it will melt and lose leaves. But what happens is these new roots, if you can see that, start to grow even if it turns yellow, discolored, and dies. The real plants that are going to do that are going to be cryptocorynes and valsinaria. Really, other than that, you don't have to worry. You don't have to worry about it because they just are hardy. They hold up. Now, if it had been something that's a tissue culture or something, it may. And a lot of people, when they move things and start a new tank, they find that the energy produced by the plant's stem, and you know what? Oh wait, never mind. I'm just going crazy. Just ignore me. That doesn't require the trimming. What is this guy doing? It doesn't require the trimming. So something to consider though about when you do move tanks is something like this. So can you guys all see this annoying bane of my existence, blackbeard algae that got in here? So not that I care about it, but when you want to sell plants, you can't give people plants out of a tank that has a bunch of blackbeard algae. It's not cool. It's like herpes. It's like duckweed. And there's a whole shag carpet of it on the edge of all these Anubias cophifolia up here too. So anything I pull out of here, even if it doesn't look like it has blackbeard algae on it, I mean, if you can spot the blackbeard algae, it is going to have some of that. So it's kind of interesting. Hey T-Bone, how's it going, brother? Amateur Aquarius, hello. You're here late, but you're here. No worries. I don't think anybody got annoyed or annoyed. Yeah, sure. I don't think anybody got it got announced to anybody that I was going live. I think you get 2 announcements per 24 hours, and then they tell you to F off. Also, you can see here I've got some plant that is this is Bacopa lemon from Lucas Bretz is originally where I got this, but it has basically you can see where the algae is growing on it. Some of the blackbeard has tried to grow. There's a lot of plants that will not allow certain algae to colonize them. They just have a chemistry about them that says, nope, you can't do it. And I'll try to use those plants. You'll figure out which plants you have that are resistant to what algae. Others are magnets for it. Anubias and blackbeard algae are like, I mean, they're like, I don't know. What are 2 things that like each other? They're like, man, oh, I feel dumb. They're like not salt and vinegar. I mean, sure, salt and vinegar. They're like salt and vinegar. Good metaphor, Alex. Good job. All right. So I need to get more CO2 for this tank, by the way. Haven't had any running for weeks. And hence you're kind of losing all the pinks and reds and some of the density. So what happens without the CO2 in these higher tech plants, some like the Rotala wallachia and things like that, they'll make a bolt for it and they'll try to get to the light, but they don't have that density, the carbon to be building a dense lattice work of leaves. And so instead of like we saw here, see how dense this is? From when it had carbon, I mean, look how tight those nodes are from each other. They're not even a centimeter spaced. Same here. These are crazy. These are even tighter. But it can get real lanky. Like this one right here is way more lanky. See, as we go down, where the light's less too. Yeah, peanut butter and jelly. Thank you. Oh, Jeff, I know what. Okay, yeah, bread and butter. You guys are so smart. And Jeff, yes, allopathy is definitely the name of the game for why. That's the chemical warfare that goes on between plants. Something that's interesting. That they've studied really well. It's a very new field to actually study. And also check out all this moss I have to do something with. I could glue all this moss. I'm probably going to do a bleach dip on it to try to kill some of the algae. But blackbeard, I don't know. Do I want to chance it? Or do I just pick a tank that already had some blackbeard algae? Because this tank for the longest time had blackbeard algae for months and months and months, a year even, on this filter head and nowhere else. And then something changed, probably phosphates, honestly. But I can't test for phosphates easily. Something changed, and now I'm seeing it. You know, here it is on that moss. Hold on. On that moss. And it's a pain in my craw. So annoying, but you know, that moss or guppy grass or Potamogeton gayi, which is another one of my favorite little plants. You can float this or you can anchor it, or you can plant it in the ground, and it has just a beautiful little ribbon look to it with lines down the center and stuff. It's a very nice one. But look at, Hygrophila pinnatifida, man, it just gets covered. So does bulbitis. Bulbitis hedulata, or hedulata bulbitis, I should say, gets covered in blackbeard algae. I've done a good job of busting off most of it, but it's just going to be there, and it's going to be along the edges that get the most current here of these broadleaf plants. So I can go at it. I've got videos on how to go at it. It's just, it is an uphill battle. I do have 2 Siamese algae eaters, the reticulated kind, in here, and that's something to consider. Now, the other thing to consider, because they'll eat it, and so will flagfish also. The other thing to consider before we start deciding what we're going to put in our new tank, aquascape-wise and whatnot, is, well, what fish? So do we have fish that we don't need to go buy, and do we want to breed some? So that's something I'm trying to decide. I'm thinking maybe these ember tetras might be something that I want in my next scape. I really like these jelly bean tetras too, but I've never successfully bred them. I haven't really tried either. But that's something to think about, is if you're going to want that, or if that's something you're interested in, then 2 to 3 weeks out is a great time to maybe start feeding them live food, pull them aside, separate the fat-bellied males and females. The females will have the fat belly, obviously, unless you start giving your fish beer, in which case then your males may develop, as we call it, fish beer gut. It's a real thing. Google it. I'm just putting fertilizer in there. Also, let's feed these fish. But right now, I'm just feeding them Fluval bug bite flakes. And that's pretty much the bottom of the barrel in my fish room, even though, it's not the cheapest food. And it is pretty good protein-wise and everything. Man, they're really going for it. I didn't feed them yesterday. Just I like to make them work for their food. But all the catfish and everything in here, there's over 25 cories in here too. I like to feed them live food, or at least frozen food when I'm fattening them up for spawning. And you guys can look at any number of my videos on how to spawn rasboras or tetras or CPDs, danios. All those things are on my site. There's 600 videos, so you guys can go back through the library and discover that if you're curious. Now, another thing that I like to do, and some people will split their plants, say a week early, so sword plants, or like right here, this is a Logonandra meboldi silver. This is a $200 plant, believe it or not. Or a Logonandra meboldi red from Germany right here. Another expensive plant. Those you can cut in half and get them to reproduce. Some people say when you cut them in half at the bulb or tuber, that, I mean, it's if it's obvious and you got a tuber this long and it's all growing out of one end, you can just cut it and it'll be all right. But sometimes it's not obvious and the tuber's more of a ball, or it's centered, and then you're like, and if you cut it right down the center, there's a good chance you kill both plants. You're not going to get a new start, and the old start can die. So because of that, I don't know the answer, and I'm curious to see what you guys think, but a lot of people say you split it up and you keep it in the same substrate because it's less of a shock to the system of the plant. Now, other people will say, well, you got to move it anyways, so when you split it, you should do it right before and when your new aquarium's ready. Just do it and then toss it in there, and don't worry about it. If it succeeds, it succeeds. If it doesn't, it doesn't. Alex, are there any benefits of algae in the aquarium? Yes, there's so many benefits of algae in the aquarium. One is it stops ammonia and nitrates, and actually it also sequesters other things like copper and just other elements that could, in theory, uh, grow too large in number, too much of them. So. um, Yes, for that reason. Yes, in that it is a biodiverse ecosystem, and algae, when you look at it under the microscope, it is a food source for other critters. So you've got things like seed shrimp, water fleas, cyclops, daphnia, whatever it may be that has started to colonize your tank, that's come in on other plants, that's come in on soil, substrate, rocks, in the guts of fish as eggs. You've got, I mean, hundreds of species of different little nematodes and bacteria and fungi and all sorts of stuff living in your aquarium. If it's of any age, if it's cycled, even, you'll probably have a few dozen, and over time you get up into the hundreds, if not maybe thousands of species when you really look at it carefully. So it's a very good thing to see, as far as knowing, okay, I've got a lot of nutrients in my tank, and my tank is it's not too high in ammonia usually. I mean, usually that's the case. The bad parts: it can at night put out too much CO2. Now, it makes oxygen also, just like normal plants, but with photosynthesis at night, then it releases CO2. And when it releases the CO2, if you have a CO2 injection tank, then you can get a spike at night when you turn the lights out too, because plants and algae both respirate. So it's a food source for your fish. Even if people tell you no, like, this, that, and the other, don't eat algae or don't eat blackbeard algae. When they get hungry enough, they eat plants, they eat algae. Just trust me. Most live bears, a lot of little tetras and things, what they'll do is they'll eat the biofilm that has protein in it on the plants and on the algae, and that inadvertently they'll also eat the algae itself structurally. So there's that. But the downside is, obviously, aesthetically, it can look terrible. It is a communicable disease, so to speak, in the hobby. And also, if you're going for an ecosystem that is a certain way, like you want a lot of stone exposed, then you have to decide on the algae that you are okay with existing. No matter what you do, you're going to have some algae living in your aquarium at some point. You just have to decide. It's kind of like if you owned a golf course. You could make your golf course immaculate, but you're going to have weeds somewhere, and you can mitigate them, but you might as well keep native species, so to speak, on their own in a little flower bed than trying to fight if there's a grove of something that keeps growing somewhere. So you can make your tank look real sterile and make it look like an aquascaped tank, but it's just, you can overdo it also, and then you make room for several different algae blooms, and then that's where you get these wild swings back and forth. But just the presence of algae of any type is not a bad sign. It's just a sign that you have enough nutrients to keep plants healthy, and likely it will just keep blooming and will keep your nitrates, and ammonia in check, unless you throw in a dead pleco. Then nothing's going to keep that ammonia in check. But yeah. Alex, Drench Aquatic asks, what are your personal experiences with sand-capped soil a la Father Fish? And Diane Wallstead, I'm struggling with wanting to gravel vac and obviously cannot. So that's actually a little bit of a myth. you can gravel vac a Wallstead aquarium. You just don't want to be digging through the substrate. So what I say about that, Father Fish tends to say that if you have, say, gravel, just gravel, the fish poop will go down and it's an open sewer bed. That's true to for a while. And so you'll have to do water changes or gravel vacs. If you do gravel vacs, you have to realize that water is flowing through that gravel. Even if it's slow, it percolates through. And beneficial bacteria is growing on that surface area of the gravel or glass beads or whatever you put in there, whether it's inert or not. And for the health of planted tanks, why not grow something like plants and use something that's not inert, like a soil or an organic compound? And because of that, what you want is an anaerobic environment. Now, if you gravel vac it, or if you put too many plant roots in, okay, so here's my theory. Father Fish thinks that you need enough area for the anaerobic bacteria to be undisturbed to break down fish mulm, which is the poop and the stuff that just collects, and then it works its way down into the substrate just by virtue of how things settle over time. Just like if you shake a box of rocks, the dense ones will work their way down and the light ones will work their way up, like gold panning. So current can kind of help settle things down, and having good circulation, a good strong current, can also keep particulate matter that's floating from ever reaching the bottom, which then prevents you from gravel vacuuming. But my opinion is, if you have anaerobic layers, it doesn't matter. You don't need huge anaerobic layers. You just need something that is eating those nutrients. So the plants ruin an anaerobic layer, so to speak, because their roots bring that oxygenated soil down. So like I said, that's how I got rid of, like we saw it last week, where the sand bed back here gets pretty deep. That's how we got rid of all the cyanobacteria pretty much. There's a little bit left right here. Is just plants. So the plants used up the nutrients that they would have been using, and instead of beneficial bacteria turning nitrates and nitrites into sulfur or hydrogen sulfide gas, my plants just ate it. Now, eventually you're going to have to either trim your plants to get that out of your tank, because all it did was concentrate those poo-poo particles, but it made them safe too. If you want to gravel vac a tank though, and it's still young, my suggestion is you stay above the substrate, maybe half an inch, and only get the big pieces of stuff that are breaking down, like here. You don't want to disturb, you see this layer of dusty stuff? That's what you don't want to disturb. This starts to seal in your tank, and anything below that layer is then encased in a catacomb. It's trapped, and only the plant roots are going to get to it, or a fish digging if they want to be a little jerk. This is an example, and many fish tanks were kept for years without that philosophy that Diane Wallstead codified in her books. This is pure gravel, and I used root tabs and water changes, so I kept everything at bay as far as, oh, look at the baby cribs. I mean, they're not babies, they're juveniles, but they're cute. So I literally just didn't do anything to this. This was all gravel, and now you can see 4 years later, it's mulm, and it is thick mulm in here all the way down. And now I have this tank, the nitrates, they don't ever spike in this tank. This is my most stable tank now. And there's a lot of fish in here. There's 4 angelfish, big Sergio here. There's 15 day, what are they called? Glow light tetras. There are almost 20 of the reed tetras, and there are 16 or 17 Cory cats, and then there's cribs and some of their babies. So There's, oh, and this big old reticulated algae eater. Well, it just swam off back up in there. But lots of stuff for a 40-gallon. Granted, it does have a big filtration system, and I would recommend, if you're doing just gravel and you don't do a sand cap, this needs new filtration. See, this actually has, it's over spilling. It's hard to see in this light, but this is filter floss that's just dirty. And this is the polishing layer right here, and it's kind of slipped out. See, it just came out when I pushed on that too. But this needs to just be soaked in a bucket of water tomorrow or the next day or whatever, so that it flows freer. But here again, here's more of that algae, that mulm, that bacteria, all the goodies. And fish, my cories eat this. Lots of, garas and things like that eat it. Panda garas and gara flavata and things like that. Loaches will eat it. And then floating plants are another good idea if you're going to do the open gravel, because they'll suck up the nitrates and nitrites also. So yes, I understand, especially if you're used to fish keeping as prescribed by the common ways, 20 to 50 years ago. It was very common to have no plants or plastic plants and to gravel vac daily. That's because you're actually never cycling your tank fully. Your tank is not an ecosystem in that regard. It's not a functioning ecosystem when you do that. It's an ecosystem, but it's not processing things like nature. And when you allow it to have that substrate with the anaerobic layer, then it finally can complete it. So it can take things like iron and it can oxidize them and fix them. Because just because you have an element in your tank doesn't mean that your fish, your plants, or anything like that can use it. That's why you get new life forms coming in your aquarium all the way up to like 4 or 5 years into its life cycle. You'll get more and more micro organisms coming to live in your aquarium, and it's because of this ecology that grows over time. But if you must gravel vac, what I suggest, like if you've got a tank, is that you gravel vac above it, so you're just getting the big stuff, and that will leave the mulm, which then still has beneficial bacteria. Or you need to have a really big sump or canister filter, or hang off the back filter. And this is just ideally speaking. Of course, you can keep fish in a bowl with no filtration, and that sometimes works fine if you know what you're doing and you have plants. But I'm just saying, the general rule of thumb where you're going to have the least amount of problems for most people, that's something to consider. And also, if you do gravel vac and you just can't help, you got a deep gravel vac, do like a third or a quarter of the tank every few days or every week, and then do a nice water change. And that will allow you to keep sections that have the biological bacteria still going. So that's what I would recommend. We're going to hop downstairs and see what's going on there. I need to catch up with some more questions. We're leaving my wife alone. If I lose you guys, I am so sorry. The internet has been whack lately, and that's a bummer, man. Bummer, man. So yeah, let's see here. Yes, so wassertongue can be very expensive because it is a slow-growing pellia. But it can grow pretty quickly under the right conditions. Oh, check this out. One of my green dragons is out. They're never out. I don't know why they don't want to come out in this tank. Looking like I could... it's gonna be female. So it looks like it's old enough to sex now. You can tell when their head doesn't have those onodontodes, but also they've got the toothy scales starting on the side of their tail there. That lets you know, you see those teeth, that alright, we can actually sex them now. Sometimes the females will get some very subtle little barbels there, onodontodes as they're known. But yeah. Alright, and then we got everyone bagging here, of course. Of course. So I'm going to give them a squirt of the fry food. Feed your fish fried food. That's what you heard me just say. Also, I need to spend some money in the fish room. Well, I need to spend some money on my teeth too. Last night, I think I told you guys I was anxious, but I actually chipped a tooth by grinding my teeth last night. Like, in my sleep, I woke up and I was spitting out a piece of my tooth. So I'm going to have to go get that fixed. And I maxed out my insurance already. So it might be a little bit before I get the new filter. But don't like these filters. I remember I said I'd give you guys my verdict. My verdict is they get clogged way too easily. And they're so tall, there's no way to shorten this piece. Who planned this? They're 12 inches tall, with no way to shorten them. It's silly. But yeah, so the next thing when planning to change around your aquascapes and things is going to be, oh, check out, this is a miniature duckweed I have too. It's just super teeny compared to, like, even the next tank over. You see how big the leaves are? This one's like teeny tiny. But hold on, I'm just feeding some ground up, and this is mostly, this aquarium co-op fry food is like salmon meal, and like it's like, it must be like a fish cannery or something that they have a deal with, because it's just like cut up fish heads, eat them up, fish heads. And the duckweed's gone crazy. You know, before I left town, there was none up there hardly. There was a little, but now it's all returned. Return to innocence. Okay, so the next thing you're gonna figure out is what kind of hardscape, wood, filtration, all that stuff. And what I would do is if I were you, I would take a filter, get a new filter if you need to, plop it into an old tank, whatever your healthiest tank is with the least amount of algae, and that's going to set you up for success. Now also, even if you have a dirty old filter like this, you can just grab that and that'll be your filter media and put clean stuff over it, but that'll get you going. Boy, I love these little striped, can you see them? Come on. These little loaches, I love them. Really cool. You guys probably remember that when I got back on Sunday, or actually Tuesday, you guys probably saw it. This whole tank was filled with algae. Yep, already kind of figured that out. It wasn't blackbeard algae or anything. It was just that green hair algae, so it was pretty easy fix. Follow my instructions as per the videos I've done on how to get rid of algae, if you're curious about that. Let's turn around every now and then. Do pea puffers want calcium, tannins? They don't need tannins, but they do like a little bit harder water sometimes. Can take brackish water. You're getting 6 tomorrow. Yeah, they live in India. They live in the tidal regions of India. I think is it the Ganges River, maybe? Maybe not. I don't know. They live in Bangladesh and India, I want to say. And some of that water gets kind of salty. And also some of the water that washes out has limestone in it. But it also has a lot of dead leaves and things. So the tannins aren't going to hurt. They do help slime coats. But a little, like, you know, a teaspoon of salt or whatever in the tank, or a tablespoon of salt in a 10-gallon tank's not going to hurt anything. Probably just liven up their slime coat. Oh, if a golf ball of Sawasser tongue It's actually, I should also let you guys know this. I have a video on it, because I have a video on everything at this point. It's Suswassertong, is how you should say it. And it's not a B, even though it looks like it, and a lot of people spell it that way. But it is it's a double S essentially, and it's kind of a Z with it's a plural Z sound. So Suswassertang, and it's just, I can't remember the name of the character, but it's a German character. So it's not Subwassertang, it's Suswassertong. How often should I be doing water change in a planted 5.5 gallon with just a Betta and ram's horn snails? Never. Honestly, if you have some moderately quick growing plants and even above the lowest level light, you could probably go forever. Bettas don't need super clean water because they can breathe air, so they can avoid bringing the water through their gills somewhat. Now, to prosper, you will probably, in a 5.5 gallon, you're going to get a higher TDS over time as water evaporates out. But if you have a lid on that, literally you could just top it off for like 6 months if you have plants in there that grow at any appreciable rate whatsoever. Water Sprite, water wisteria, Kabamba, Rotala, Ludwigias, even anything like that. Petition to rename glow light tetras so people don't confuse them with glowfish. Yeah, cat power, I agree. Except for maybe they should rename glowfish. They should just call them freak fish. Or jellyfish fish. Secret history, I'm struggling to understand when to go trim plants and what to do with my trimmings. Any advice? Yeah, so Matthew, great question. Yeah, let's take a look at this aquarium. Trimming plant is very subjective. What do you want from them? Part of it's going to depend on your lights. Boy, I need to treat this guy for worms like so bad. I'm feeling like the worst fish parent ever. I have nothing but levamisol right now, and I don't want to nuke the tank with that. That'll kill all my snails and everything. So I need to take him out. God, that was nasty. I'm sorry, guys. I feel so awful. It's been 2 days that I've noticed that now. I noticed it last night. But for plants, so when you cut a plant, what happens is the plant creates this gel. And what the gel is made out of is T cells, or not T cells, sorry, stem cells, undifferentiated cells. And when those are created, it doesn't know if it should make root material, if it should make a branch in the tree, if it should make sap, if it should flower. And so it takes cues from the rest of the plant body. Now, if there's still leaves on it lower down or whatnot, then your plant body is going to tell it, hey, I'm still good. Just keep growing. And it'll usually fork off in most stem plants. Hey, we got a lipstick goby saying hello. Hi, guys. I'm Kermit the Frog. Kermit the Frog here. How's it going? I look like a sock puppet, not a real fish. So in any case, cutting that allows it to get denser. So then you've got 2 branches, right? And then you can take the piece you cut and put it into the ground with stem plants. So then you have 2 plants now. They're both going to grow. Then you cut them again, and on this one that had 2, you can cut this side and that side. So you've got a stem, and it makes the plant denser and denser. If you decided it's gotten too dense, just cut it below the points. But I mean, if you start low, if you start trimming it early, you can let a plant grow like this, trim it all the way down here, it'll branch, trim it again, it'll branch. So you can have up to 8 branches coming off this way, very short order. So that's one thing you can do. Another thing you can do, like I'm doing right here with this, this is a swamp rose. And, oh, it has algae on it. As I just said, I treated the algae in here. Well, I lied. But this is a swamp rose, and I'm trying to get it to send out daughter roots right now. But what it's doing instead is just sending out a whole bunch of bottom feeding roots. So I don't know if I haven't worked with this plant much. I don't know if it's going to. But most like Rotalas, Ludwigias, things like that, like any of these plants over in here, they're all gonna, if I took them and cut them, see here's a good example of one where I cut it below that point and now it's got two. And then above that point, if I were to cut it again, it'd split into two again. Now with Rotalas, you can also see they'll grow like this, where you get there's a node here, and then there's another one even farther up. There's another node. Then there's a node down there. That's because I keep trimming it and it keeps forking off. And then what you can do with that is you can actually bury that lengthwise, and those shoots are coming up at an angle enough that you can just trench the whole thing and it will grow up out of there, no problem. So I mean that's one thing that I would recommend on the way to do it. This plant is hygrophilas grow like they're no one's business. They're just insane. You can't control these damn things. This is I had cut these down all the way below this level of this pink one, and in a week and a half they're already another whatever 8 inches. So these are going to sequester lots of nitrogen. So for this purpose in this tank, I'm just using these to cut down on the amount of algae in theory, because I've got highlight 100% of this Fluval 3.0 planted plus hitting these plants in 6 inches of water or less. So I mean, Algae City is just asking for it here with that. So what I do is then I can just take these, I can put them in a new tank or something, but these are made out of the nitrates that the fish poop. I mean, this is fish poop and carbon and oxygen and, you know, other trace elements, but in action. Throwing this away is like having a skimmer and going through and getting rid of all of that stuff, all those nitrates and nitrates out of there. So what I do, like I said upstairs, is I float them. This one, it gives you time to also spot things like snail eggs if you don't want those on there. A lot of them aren't viable anyways, but if you're worried about that, I mean, it gives you time to spot pests or algae. And then as you grow it, you'll see these little roots start growing from it, and then you can cut any section. I mean, you could cut literally this much of this plant and it would grow. That could shock it, actually. I mean, that's pretty much the limit. But different plants can take different things, and some will take it all the way down to like a centimeter of root stock or stem stock is replicable. You know, these Ludwigias are like that. I could plant this last little crown and it would be fine. But that is part of what I do to prepare for getting a new tank set up. And the other thing that I'm going to do, so that's going to be the tank that I need to do, or I mean, I could set up a new one. Don't tell my wife. But you're going to need to scoop out the old substrate if it's old, or get new substrate. The other thing you can do is just kind of revitalize things by adding a little bit more. You know, I like the ADA Amazonia. That's kind of my favorite one lately, for having the most bang for your buck. But you have to let it settle. You can't just toss it in and expect everyone to be happy, because it's got that ammonia and the nitrites and the nitrates. Here we have some of my fry that I was raising that'll go into the new tank. Like I was saying, I want ember tetras. Well, these are the Bettas, the scarlet Bettas, and they're another one that I'd like to do. How do you remove your baby shrimp and fry safely when breaking down an old tank? That's a great question, Jerry. There's not a good way other than feeding them. So I feed them something they really love. And I won't feed them for like 3 or 4 days, because they can eat algae, because everyone overfeeds their shrimp, or I mean spoils their shrimp, and shrimp will live completely neglected. It's a sad but true fact that Neocaridina shrimp, Malawa shrimp, Amano shrimp will live if you do nothing to help them survive. They just will live. So here's a good example. See all these roots that have started, even in this low light that's one row of LEDs all the way back there. You can see that these plants have been floating for a while, and they've got all these tap roots coming down. Any section with that tap root, that is basically just like, I mean, it's just like a tissue culture. So I would just cut that and plop that in right here, right here, right here, whatever, you know. Oh, this guy's all colored up tonight. That's interesting. They have tended to be a little cold and not coloring up. Here's my rainbow shiners too. They're not in spawning color or anything right now, but they're looking nice. And let's see if we can find the elastomas too. And it looks like the snails came in on something, because obviously they bloomed. Now, the baby, or the mother snail thought, or mommy, daddy snail thought, we have food, we should have lots of babies. But these have been in here for weeks now, and they're just not growing because that just wasn't the truth. There wasn't enough food for the baby snails. So they're very soft shelled also. You can see they're like clear shelled, a lot of them. They will crush easily, and then these peacock gudgeons will have lunch. So that'll be how I'll feed them soon, just to not worry about it. Also, the Pongeton ovasis, also flowering again up here. The old flower has fallen back into the water right here. And you can see the nodes where the seed pods are. The seeds have fallen out for the most part of this. Are there any left? I'm trying to get you guys to see it. I don't think so. They're actually down. They're these little brown dots. See them there? In the water. And those will grow into bulbs eventually. So yeah. Alright, let's see here. Let me get up. Sorry, my knees are bad. Hey, Pandagara. You're my little buddy. I love you. No one uses this thing. None of my fish like that thing. That big fish house. Don't know why. They're ungrateful. They don't love me. Here's a tank that's an interesting situation. So when we were talking about deciding what to set up new tanks and things, here's a tank with no secrets. So we can see we've got a planaria right here on the glass. What a pain in the butt. We've got fry in here. We've got oh, here we go. Here's one of those algae eating shrimp that you guys saw the other night that has, I wish it would focus well on her. She's got a belly full of babies though. Now, I've always read that these things needed brackish water and needed to go out to sea to really be at their full potential. But as we've said, there are babies in here. There are baby short nose algae eating shrimp in here, which are Japanese, as well as the typical ones that I would expect, which are the Little Red Riding Hood Neo. But let's see here. Hopefully one will swim around here in a second. We can point out the clear babies. But there's no deep sand bed. This is so shallow. So this tank, the only filtration that it has, the only saving grace it has, if you have a tank like this, like a little nano tank, is this filtration. It could be a hang off the back or whatever, but that is responsible for cleaning all the water, and all the plants are either little rhizome plants or moss balls, which is an algae. There's one of the little shrimp right there, but I don't know why it won't focus. Also, these Taiwanese lilies, they don't really need substrate. They really just use their roots for anchoring. See how that's wrapping around the crypt? And the crypts a lot of times don't necessarily need roots for nutrients. Now some really do, but some can feed from the water. Also, this is some of my green jade shrimp babies. There's one right here. They don't produce super true. And so the babies are kind of yellow to orangish, surprisingly. Here's one of those baby shrimp right there from the short nose algae ones. But in this tank, there's no nitrogen cycle being processed over the long term in the deep sand substrate sand. Same here. That's why I don't gravel vac this, is because the mulm that's sitting on the bottom here, if I were to here, I'll do it for giggles. If I take a turkey baster and I squirt, say here, that is just awful. Can you guys see what a mess that made? That is kicking up nitrates, nitrite, fecal bacteria. It's no good. In fact, I'm trying to suck it into the turkey baster now because I shouldn't have done it. That's that open sewer effect that Father Fish is talking about. And when you gravel vac, you're getting rid of that, which is okay if you have enough biological filtration here, but you're never going to cycle this. Now, if you let it be, the mulm actually layers itself in a way that is conducive to capping itself. The siltiest stuff will be up top, it's lightest. The denser particles will go down. The bacteria will eat it. The bacteria will bring it down. And if you have sand, I always recommend putting sand at the very bottom so that you can nestle stones and things without pressure points on the glass. It disperses the mass the best. So I always recommend that. Then beyond that, I like to do a layer of gravel, which is a layer for all the mulm and other things to fall down in between the sand and the gravel. And then what I'll do is I'll mix in an active substrate or another sand or Eco-Complete. Here's by the way, here is one of from Aquatic Arts, which there's a code in the description if you guys want a discount and want to buy something there. They got lots of cool micro crabs and all sorts of stuff right now. But this little shrimp is a Caridina gold nebula. And this thing is just not doing well zoomed in. But in any case, yeah. So that's what they look like versus a Malawa Caridina, which does not have any of the striping. My theory is it has to do with the way that they sequester calcium in their shell. Maybe wrong, though. Little Stiphodons chilling. As always, we like to check in on the Stiphodons. Look how many baby Malaysian trumpet snails there are right now. That's not a good sign. The sign would say, Alex, you're overfeeding your tank. The problem is, I'm really not with all the shrimp and stuff. You can see how little I'm feeding. These guys will make short work of everything within 10 minutes. Now, that's usually too long, but it's not flake food. This is powdered food, so it takes them longer to eat. And that's purposeful, so some of it can fall to the bottom for the gobies, for the shrimp, for the baby fry up top, and all that. And you can see how much moss I've grown in here, too, in the last few months. So that's just something to consider. Here's another mixed substrate bed where you can see open sewer, quote unquote, by Father Fish's standard. But I have Hedulata bulbitis, low light plant. I have Cryptlutea. I have mini butterfly, and Aponogeton. I have Crispus. Also some Anubias, Fraseri, and Hostifolia. So those things are all helping break things down, but beyond that, in the substrate, things are getting broken down. Now the problem here is look at all the planaria. Can you guys see all the planaria? When I have the catfish in here, the Corridoras, they made short work of them. And people wonder, you know, where are all these little creatures coming from? I told you, you have a whole lot of critters in your ecosystem, in your aquarium. Here are those golden white cloud minnows that were outside, and they're still all tanned up and looking beautiful. They're really, really special right now. And hopefully they'll lay some eggs on these plants, and then I'll move them over to the little tanks. The plants, not the adults. The adults will chill. But those, a lot of people worry about planaria eating baby shrimp and things like that. They tend to not do that unless they're really out of control. This is approaching out of control, I would have to say, though. Sorry about the dirty algae on here. But again, my panda loaches love eating that biofilm, so I try not to clean it. I'll clean the front glass, you know, for you guys sometimes, but I try to leave it most of the time. At least, you know, I'll try to get a window like up here, but on the edges I still like to leave them this thick algae and protein layers of biofilm. Yeah, if you haven't hit that thumbs up yet, I'd appreciate that. We've had 70 people in here. Yes, Dead Fred, it is Monkaya duckweed. Let's get Alex up to the 15K. Yeah, CK, I'm okay with that. Today, I got like over 14 total subscribers taken away. Probably because I reported all the ones that were like, hey, big boy, you want to come with me and talk about fish? No, they were like porn sites or something, bots. But yeah. That is the subwasser tank thing. Alright, hold up, guys. Hey, Alexander, my mystery snail fell out of my tank and his shell is really broken now. Can anything else be done? Catappa leaves. Also, if you, some people recommend salt baths, but I would not do a salt bath because, you know, salt, snails, salt, slugs, it actually is not good. It kills them. So most of my snails that have fallen out, I have a famous snail on this channel named Cracky, who fell over 20 some times. He's an escape artist, Nearite, and he healed blue. So every crack he has is blue. So I would say put tannins in before salt. If you can read somewhere else that salt is a great idea from a veterinarian or something, then maybe do that. But yeah, I'd be careful. Hey, Ro, how's it going? How you doing, my friend? Jalen, hello. Coming in late, no problem. Joe Naramore, hello. Where did I get my female Battis? I hunted at stores, and I went through about 1 billion fake sleeper males. You know, I'd put a male and 2 females in, and when I took the male out, all of a sudden, oh, now I have 1 male and 1 female. I'd take out the male again, oh, now I have another male, and it took months to figure out. Finally, I got a female, and they spawned in this tank, actually, just like this, and what I let them eat was all the stupid planaria that I have in here. So all my little predatory fish, pearl gouramis and sparkling gouramis, I should say, things like that, they love eating these things. Can crypts be attached to driftwood and still grow? A lot can, yes. You need to dose your water or have a higher load of nitrates and nitrates so that the water column has enough for them to feed off of, so to speak. Also, check out this. Oh, she's pregnant. You can see right through how dark her eggs are. She's going to have some really dark blue babies. That's how that works on this strain from Lucas. Alright, advice needed. I set up a 20-gallon mutt guppy tank. This is from Doug. For my grandson. He wants to add a Betta. What are the chances of a random male Betta will do well? We'll divide the tank if it doesn't work. You could give it a shot. You really can. I usually start them young is the difference, but I had a Betta in this tank. If you go back a couple months and watch my live streams, I had 3 or 4 bettas in this tank. I have bettas in this tank with the angelfish, and they actually spawn back in this corner here, back by this power head. So it does depend on the betta. I would say if you can, break up their line of sight as much as possible so that they don't necessarily see each other. And hello, Kermit the Frog here. I'm hanging out and wearing lipstick. So that they don't intimidate each other, because they are territorial. But if they can't see each other, they don't exist. Silly fish. Man, I love these guys. I have not gotten these to spawn yet. I hear cold water is the trick. Okay, let's turn this around. Alex, how is the Ludwigia inclinata I got? Oh, good. Ken, I need to send you stuff, man. I don't have any good excuse. I just been sleeping on it. Ken came in second place in our aquascaping was it second place? I think it was second place. In our aquascaping contests. And I need to send him plants. Or I could just send you money, but I think you wanted plants more. The post office has just been terrible. I was expecting something from someone in Seattle, and it has taken over a week and a half, and I still haven't gotten it. It's driving me freaking nuts. Jack Laporte, or Laporte. Alex, can you speak about freshwater clams? I found that local fish stores selling them. Unfortunately, I know nothing about them. Yeah, so they're water polishers is what they are. They will also strip a lot of algae out of your tank that's in the water. It's like green water. They will clean up in a heartbeat. They'll also clean up any sort of infusoria in your tank. So if you're trying to raise fry, they get rid of all the goodies that your little fry are going to eat. But as far as keeping the water clean, if it's all just adult fish and plants in your tank, or just adult fish, they'll go through a whole 20-gallon tank a day, a little clam, and they're filter feeders. So, let's see here. Oh, those little black and white Pascal GP. I've seen lots of new names and faces in here. Good to see everyone. If you like my content, please subscribe. If you'd like to join the channel as a member, I post scientific journal articles. We go on mushroom hunting field trips, apparently. That's today. And, I post behind the scenes videos, sometimes stuff that's a little, drop the F-bomb or something that wouldn't be monetized or allowed on YouTube. And the more that I can do that, the more that folks want to support the channel, the more I can show you, the more I can go places. I'd love to go, aquatic experience. I'd love to go to some of the meetups. I need to get out to Lucas Brett's house. I'm working on all his merch right now. He does have a bunch of merch already, and I'm the creator of it, as well as a couple other channels. If you look down below, there's some links to my Teespring, but art, this is all pen and ink, and the water mixed in with the ink is from my aquariums. So I like to put a little touch of it in the original. But yeah, so that's my little spiel. If you're new, because I'm seeing names I don't necessarily recognize. And that's great. I love to see new people. Maybe you're just lurkers, though, which is the name of, for $1.99, that's the name of the first tier. But it just helps going towards stuff, but I don't expect anybody to pay to learn. Knowledge, I believe, should be free and attainable for everyone. I think it only helps our world. Definitely. Let's see here. Yeah. Alex, where did you find... Oh, where did I find the mini duckweed? I got it accidentally from a gal in my fish club who also I bought Elosoma gilberti from, the pygmy dwarf Gulf Coast sunfish, and it just happened to be with normal duckweed, and for some reason in that low light tank under there, it has just formed, as opposed to it also has formed a little bit in this tank here. You can see here there's some of this really teeny duckweed in here too, as opposed to like this normal duckweed up here, which has, you know, maybe almost a centimeter across at the wide points. What are your thoughts on safety sorb as a cap on dirt? Millions and Sons. I wonder if it would still pull too much from the water instead of anything leaching. Well, the other thing you could do is you can fill safety sorb with inert things. So you can fill, you'd have to go online and see what other people are doing. I haven't done it, but I just know that you can use safety sorb, which is just basically diatomaceous earth or Fuller's earth. And it is a clay. It's like kitty litter, like old school kitty litter back. Oh my goodness, look at them all. I'm going to have to just vacuum them up. That's what I'm going to do. I'm going to suck them all up, and they're going to go bye-bye. Oh, look who it is. I haven't seen this fella in a long time. Hey, buddy, it's my Sultan Pleco. Just chilling, just doing his thing, just coming out and saying hi. Oh, the Goby wants to play. Got that from Aquatic Arts for $34 on sale. What a killer price a couple weeks ago. I think it was like 37, and then well, it's not counting shipping, so it was probably like 40 bucks in total with the other stuff. I got these gobies there too, and all that's in the description. But the safety sorb, you can get it to suck up something like calcium, for instance, that's not so harmful. Calcium can be harmful if you have too much. You can make it so that eggs and shells of snails are too hard and they have some deformation issues and kind of like bone spurry issues. But really, it's usually a lack of calcium that's going to give you more trouble. So I would say that I would get it filled. Put it in a bucket with something that doesn't really help or hurt. I'm trying to think if there's anything better than that, though. Like, maybe just carbon. Maybe, like, atomic carbon. Not sure. But then, that way, it's already just kind of a sponge. It will keep sucking things up, and the plants will suck that carbon back out of it. But maybe that would help. That, or you could just leave it in a bucket with general fertilizers, and then you've got it charged with fertilizers, but not all the way. But I just don't think I'd use it as a cap. I would still put sand as the cap. That's what I thought. Lots of questions tonight, Randy Roman. That's right. Have you tried or had any luck using a tumbler to hatch red cherry shrimp eggs? Any way to help prevent them dropping clutches? They do that when they're stressed, so keep the water the same. Even if that means the nitrates are going up or anything, just keep them the same. Just let them slowly change in their water. Don't do big water changes. See how this is evaporating? I will top this off in 2 separate days usually. Because Neocaridina, they can be bulletproof if you're just slow and steady with the change. I am losing battery, so I'm going to try to get through these questions. But if you've enjoyed this, please join us another time. And who is... You're the only wrench, I think. Oh, Ginger. Good, you have your wrench again. Muppet, you have your wrench also. Let's see here. Dragon Lair, what's up? But the egg tumblers, not the best luck, honestly, in raising cherry shrimp eggs. Usually, if the mom terminates them, she has already decided they're not fertile or there's something wrong with them. Dechlorinator can be an issue, just so you know. If you put too much dechlorinator in a tank, the sulfur in it, the sulfur will actually... the rings of sulfur, the biological ring of it, will form this giant compound that then attaches to the membrane of the eggs and then causes them to not be able to hatch. They become chewy or gummed up, I guess. I don't know, whatever you'd call them. Squishy, rubbery. Oh, Randy, I'm glad you liked the mushroom walk today. It's a little something different. One day a month, maybe you could draw a small type of fish and do a member giveaway. That would rock. Yeah, it's something to think about. I mean, I might do that for members or something. Hey, Redfish, Bluefish, how's it going? Martin, how's it going? Speaking of art, have you seen the documentary Wolfgang Beltracci? A German fellow who managed to fool art. Oh yeah, I do know that guy. That crazy story. Yes, awesome story too. I kind of thumb my nose at fancy art, even though like whenever I've gotten a couple grand for a painting, then I don't thumb my nose anymore. I'm like, oh, totally, it's totally legit. Whatever you said. I've put my foot in my mouth and been like, oh, this is my least favorite piece, as they're about to say, oh, it's my favorite piece, it's so deep. And I'm like, oh yeah, I primed that canvas in 2 hours and it means nothing to me. Oh, I mean, it's deep, I love it. After fungi livestream, I went to the mailbox and my new fungi perfecti catalog was there. Serendipity? I think so. Fungi perfecti, really overpriced for their like autoclaves and that kind of gear, but if you need spores or like plugs, like the wax plugs to start a log or whatever, they're great, and just for information they're great. Paul Stamets is a mad scientist. He's like the Tesla of our times, one of them. Limpet snails. The local fish store has them. Weird stuff. I don't like limpets. They just stick to rocks. They do clean, but they move a lot slower than nereids. I'd stick with nereids. Zebra nereids, normal nereids, red racer nereids. New Mexico Aquatics, thank you so much for saying that, little Bobby. I appreciate that you enjoy the content. That means a lot to me. I'm glad that you guys dig it. I use Amazonia ADA 2 usually, which has a little less, fake name, what's up, brother? Which has a little less ammonia, nitrites, and nitrates, the active ingredients, so to speak, of a substrate. By the way, here's my pretty Betta, one of them. There's 2 in here. There's a male and a female, but here's my male. And yeah, there at one point there were like 15 in here. At one point there were over 15 with my guppies and my pea puffers up here. If you go back a few months, like 5 months when I was spawning them all. But yeah, for that question about, but I hate how it's so closely zoomed in when I go to my, like, I have to hit it twice. Seems a fellow can fake fine art without notice. Maybe not so fine. The artist he impersonates given his success. Yeah. So, funny story, real quick. Go bug my wife. My battery's at 5%, so I might lose you guys in a sec. But I love you, and you can join your membership if you'd like to. And now I'm posting outlines, sources, and all sorts of behind-the-scenes stuff, but I'm not cutting anyone off from videos. Knowledge should be free, but extra work for me is not free. So that's how we're trying to monetize it, because I understand not everyone has money. I don't have money. Okay. This painting here. Look at how happy my wife is that I interrupted her Gilmore Girls or whatever the hell she's watching. Watch your mouth. This is a family-friendly channel. So, these paintings, I did one of these. And, actually this one only took 3 hours too, surprising. That one took over 34 hours. But this one took 60 hours, so it doesn't make any sense. But this was what I was going to do. I was going to do a fiddlehead, and that was the background. You see it? So I primed the background, and I painted this for my, well, not for my wife, but she loved it, so I took it out of the gallery show that it was in and gave it to her for a holiday. But this primed background, which I had not even painted anything on, became several series of just color, which I think I made something up like the Vortex or Venturi Fury or, something silly, Aurora. I mean, I don't mind them. They're like color accents, but they don't take skill per se. I mean, maybe a little, but not like these or that, or where's my ram skull? Or like this one took years, you know, of work to be able to do something like that. Canvas on panel, yeah. You know, here's the originals. I actually painted this before I owned a Corsican ram skull. But in any case, this is the kind of stuff. I used to have an art gallery and have done art in some capacity full time for a long time. So in any case, that fern, somebody came in and bought the primed canvas before I could do the rest. So I hadn't even finished priming the canvas, and they're like, it's brilliant. It's like the Northern Lights meets a tornado. I'll give you $800 for it. And it was not even a foot by, it's like 11 inches by 8 inches, I think. So who knows? Art is a joke sometimes. The stuff you work the most on is not ever going to be the stuff you get the most money for unless you're real famous. This is like bread and butter. This and sailboats, stuff like that is kind of what I got known on. Also, this went around and got passed around by the actual Seahawks clothing and stuff like that, as well as a couple. There's a Germain curse, and if you know Seahawks, we'll talk about another video. You guys will have to tune in later. Maybe I'll do some behind the scenes stuff. You guys can go to www.somainkdesigns.com if you care to see my graphic design work. This is a pit bull skull, or maybe it's a Bernese Mountain Dog or Saint Bernard. I don't remember which one it is. Big burly jawed dog. Seahorse. Another little fiddlehead. But in any case, this is something I did for my wife. That's the Forum in Rome. That's all pen and ink. I did the father fish thing. That's her. It's based off a picture. And then, oh, since we were mushroom collecting, this is a mushroom spore print that I was talking about earlier. So I used to cut out stencils, and you'll see that on my Instagram or on my site, my website, where I've taken that and to another level and made whole designs out of it. I think I'm the only person to be doing that in the world when I did it. Someone has made blown up spore prints, but I was the only person that I had known who did that. This is about 15 years old now. This is one of my earlier paintings. It's acrylic. So, in any case, we don't need to talk about paintings, but if you dig it, you dig it. And, you know, if I do any sales on that kind of stuff, or, oh, and here is an alligator skull. Oh, and then my wife's old pup in kind of a Banksy style. So, yeah. Some more illustration type stuff. Photography. You know, stuff. I make a lot of jewelry too. A lot of stuff my wife has, I've made. If I can find it. Oh, these. Made those. These. Hammered. In any case. So yeah. Oh, average fish keeper. Thanks, man. Yeah, I painted my whole car up and stuff. Another little view of Seattle here. Can you guys see this? Oh, yeah. So these are all wood block cuts. That's an octopus. That's my first kind of steampunk. Just those gears as the eye were my first steampunk animal. And now if you go to my Teespring store, all of the art is either front and back of the shirt. This is also a woodblock carving of Seattle. And then this is a topographic map by depth chart of the San Juan Islands. So yeah, acrylic pours are really beautiful. Okay, I gotta go because my phone is at 3%. But thank you guys for joining me for this extra live stream. It's been great. If you feel like joining the channel, like I said, just click that join button and pick a level that suits you best. If you can't, and if you don't want to, then don't. And also, if you want to subscribe and you're not subscribed yet, please join us. We have a robust community and we are all real friendly around here. So have a great night, you guys. Thank you. I think we're probably going to hit the 15 mark tonight, tomorrow. I don't know. Who knows? I got rid of a bunch of bots by reporting comments, and I think that deleted some subscribers. Probably YouTube probably took care of that. But whatever, it doesn't matter. It's about the quality, not the quantity, anyways. And you guys are my favorite. You guys are my favorite. Like, we have a great community here. So yeah. Yeah, exactly. Less is more with shrimp, buddy. Randy, just leave them alone. Pretend like they don't exist, and they always do better. I mean, you got to give them their basic needs, but when you start doing things and worrying about them and changing things a lot, they just die. All right. Oh, my phone is literally starting to turn off. All right, guys. Have a good night. Take care. Take care of your plants, your animals, your people around you, yourself, so you can do those other things. And of course, if we all did that, the world would be twice as good if we just did it half the time. Have a good night. Take care, guys. Thanks for all the questions. Thanks for rolling in. Sorry nobody got alerts, apparently. I'll talk to you later. Bye.